Hey guys, time for another Patreon question. This one comes from Danielle. And they ask, do you think backwards compatibility and HD re-releases are lowering the dollar value of older consoles and games? Also, is dollar value or personal value more important to you in your collection? Huh, great question. All right, I've assembled a Metal Jesus crew and we're gonna start with Kinsey.
I'll tackle backwards compatibility first. I think it depends. Like, for example, the first run PS3s that play PS2 games, those are pretty much the only ones worth fixing right now, and those are the desirable ones. So in that case, backwards compatibility can raise the price. And I think with like Xbox and stuff, when they add new games to their backwards compatibility, a lot of those are gonna be like first party common titles, so they're not that expensive to begin with. But now that you can play it on your Xbox One, people are gonna go get it because they remember it, and that might raise the price a little bit. So, HD re-releases. I think that if it's like one generation back, it can hurt the value. Like things like, you know, the BioShock getting, you know, a 1080p remaster on PS4, but it just came out one generation back, then why would you buy this? Obviously you're gonna get this one. So I think in that case it can kind of hurt the value, but then again, these re-releases are usually happening to common titles, so they're not worth that much to begin with. But they're worth a lot in our hearts, because I love this game, and this collection's awesome. But I do think that when it's something a little bit older, so as we're seeing right now with Link's Awakening, this can trigger a lot of like nostalgia. So they're playing this, and they're like, oh my god, I used to play this on my Game Boy, I'm gonna get that again. I'm gonna buy Link's Awakening and a Game Boy. So I think that can raise the price a little bit. We might have seen that also with things like Secret of Mana. But personally, I really like these HD remakes because I love the old games. It just gives me a new way to go back and visit them. Oh, and this question was a two-parter. Second part is dollar value or personal value more important to you in your collection? And I know everyone's gonna say personal value, because obviously that's true. That's why I collect it. I collect it because I love it. And I really don't have that many, you know, crazy, rare, expensive things in my collection, so I don't think it's worth a crazy amount. But, in a way, it's also kind of like a weird investment, even though I'm not planning on selling it. But, you know, if I get really sick, or if I, like, need a bunch of money or something, I could fall back on it. You never know. So that's what I think about HD remakes and how much I love my collection.
I think they are somewhat, this is a good thing, of course, but maybe not a good thing for resellers. But it's a good thing that's happening because it's kind of bringing these games to a new audience, which is great. You know, possibly when games are re-released like that, they'll get like possible sequels, more interest in the IP or whatnot. So I think it does.
So at my store, you know, we check on these things pretty frequently, especially as, you know, things become available digitally or there's an HD remake or that sort of thing. And yeah, sometimes it totally affects value. A couple examples off the top of my head. Okami on the PS2 went from being like $20 to $25 in 2017, and it's all the way down to like, I don't know, 10 to 15 maybe now. Same thing happened to Shadow of Colossus, almost that exact shift. So a few things, yeah, totally. But then you have something like Earthbound, where they put it out digitally, and it really didn't rock the boat at all. I mean, it didn't really shift prices, and I think, you know, between those games, there's some level of, like, collector desirability on the Earthbound side, and maybe less so on the PS2 games, but it completely depends. It just depends on if people think that having that physical game is still a cool thing for their collection. Maybe there's not a lot of copies out there. Maybe there are a ton of copies out there. It's kind of all over the place. As for whether or not that makes a difference for me in my collection, to be honest, I mean, it's only frustrating if I paid high for something and then it slips really low. I can't think of any time that's happened because of an HD remake, but I've had, you know, reprints or something have tanked the values of some games. Things like Xenoblade Chronicles on the Wii didn't really get affected that much by it getting re-released on 3DS, but it did get affected by a reprint. I think I bought it for $70, and I want to say now it's more like $35 or $40 as of recording this video. Maybe I'm wrong. That's one of those things where I'm like, oh man, I overpaid. But I'm not really upset about it. it's nice to know that things in my collection are worth some money in case I'm ever in a tight spot, but, you know, I'm not really planning on getting rid of any of this stuff, so it doesn't really matter to me too much beyond just the bummer of paying high for something. That's really it.
For me, though, the whole backwards compatibility thing is pretty darn awesome because I'm not a collector. So I just want to play the games. So if I can do this all on one console, or fewer consoles, that makes more space on my shelf and fewer wires I have to plug in everywhere. So that's just better for me as a non-collector, just as a gamer. Now for a collector, I don't think it's going to change much. If nothing else, there will be more of them out there. But the thing is that there's still going to be only a finite number of the old consoles. So I don't think it will change it that much. What it will do is make people want to play the games more because more people have access to the games, and then perhaps they'll want to get the actual physical thing, because that's what you want to collect, right? Is the actual physical hardware thing you put in your hands and love and cuddle and maybe lick on occasion. So there you go, but don't take my word for it. Take theirs.
Right, so to answer your question, consoles, yes. But HD remakes, not so much. I think a lot of times those originals are meant to be played as they're originally supposed to be played on. Case in point being like that Silent Hill collection recently, where it's like, thanks for trying, it sure looks pretty. Not quite the same. So to answer your question, the consoles maybe. Consoles kind of get cheap over time for the most part, but those re-releases, I think you're always going to have a top dollar or a top value for the originals in the first place. But then when it comes down to what I collect, you know, is personal value, monetary value. Well, even though I'm literally wearing a shirt that says "Collect what you love," and I'm collecting a whole lot right there. The money's nice. Of course, you got to collect what you love. You got to collect what you play and appreciate. But it's so nice to have that monetary value, because sometimes you get those unexpected bills, and a whole lot of TNC Surf designs are not going to pay for them.
I do think that backwards compatibility is going to affect the market of original consoles. I've seen that at retro game cons, that less people are wanting that old console that they're never going to hook up to a TV. And so, you know, having things backwards compatible, you know, I think it's awesome. I think there's still going to be collectors out there pursuing original hardware, but, you know, for most people, they're not going to care. And I think that, you know, as we evolve and game, there's going to be lots of different ways of playing older consoles. I think the games themselves, I think, are constantly going to be in demand, depending on the game, but I think even that's going to change over time. Different people are going to pursue different games, and so moving forward, you know, for me, dollar value means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. You know, that's not why I collect. You know, my goal is to have a place to represent gaming history with physical media. That's why I collect, and so the dollar value means nothing to me.
You know, I love HD remasters, and I love it when a console is backwards compatible. You know, the first things that come to mind is the PlayStation 3, when that launched and it had PlayStation 2 as well as native PlayStation 1 support. That to me is just absolutely amazing, when you can go out and buy a console and it supports literally thousands of games. And, you know, here's the thing, you know, look around my game room, like, I have no problem playing old games. So I really do like it when a console allows me to do that fairly easily. The other one, of course, is the Xbox 360 and also the Xbox One. And maybe even the PlayStation 5. We'll have to see if that supports it as well. So as far as a console goes, I'm a huge fan of it. You know, as far as remasters of older games to new, again, a big fan. I've said this before, and you know, I look around my game room and I love playing old games, but sometimes old games have little things to them that can be really annoying, whether they don't allow you to change the controls to be a little bit more modern, or perhaps they have tank controls. Perhaps the gameplay is great, but all it needs is just a better coat of paint, like maybe higher polygon count or maybe a better frame rate. And so sometimes I think that, you know, HD remasters are amazing. So, you know, sometimes a good idea in the past is a good idea today. And so I feel like that they're pretty cool. And then the other part of your question is, Is dollar value or personal value more important to you in your collection? And the answer is I don't really think about it. I've been collecting for 30 years. I'm old. So I am definitely collecting because I like to collect. It's also the reason why I don't go for complete collections, because me personally, I don't really want all that stuff. I just want stuff that means something to me, and I like to hold on to it for a long time. But it is interesting because a lot of people will come to me, they'll email me and they'll be like, hey, how much is this game worth? And the truth is I don't often know, because I only know what I paid for it back in the day, but I'm not following trends for all of these games, you know, 40 years worth of games, and I don't necessarily really care until it comes time for me to actually buy something I'm looking for. And I don't really sell stuff. I've sold some duplicates to, you know, here and there, but in generally, I don't. I actually, you know, I like having my collection and I like keeping it for the long haul. And again, this is not just for video games. I'm the same way when it comes to music. I still have a massive CD collection. You guys just don't see it. You guys know that I collect vinyl records. Well, I was collecting them long before they became hipster and cool, and you know, now they're kind of expensive, but I was buying a lot of them when they were cheap, and that was kind of cool to be able to do. So to answer your question, no, I don't really consider it. That said, you know, it is nice knowing that something that you've bought years ago may be more valuable today. You know, I'm not gonna lie, that is pretty cool, but again, I don't have to sell anytime soon, and I don't intend to. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you very much for asking that. This question was asked by one of my Patreon contributors who help support my YouTube channel and help shape the content of my videos. In addition to asking questions like this, they also get access to a private chat. You can also set the amount you want to contribute, and you can leave or change it at any time. If you'd like to help support my videos and become part of the Metal Militia, please go to patreon.com/MetalJesusRocks.